You may have played poker, but playing poker in Texas is a different animal. This is the Texas Poker Podcast with Tyler and Clint.
Hello, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. I'm Tyler. This is Clint.
What's up, y'all?
We are back with episode 63.
Episode 63. So, I know this episode we're going to cover the second part of my Vegas trip. What have you got going on, Tyler? I forgot. Have you played much poker this week?
Well, I am going to play right after we record this, but I did play yesterday. And I guess I'll just give you the brief rundown on that. I only played for about an hour and a half, hour, 50 minutes about. I ended up leaving up $170, but it did not come. It was a session full of swings.
Your sessions almost always are, man.
The first hand I played that was somewhat interesting, I tried bluffing some guy with ace high, but he luckily had his headphones in because I missed. I had ace queen. The flop came king high.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you see bet here?
I did c-bet, but I c-bet pretty big. I c-bet like $60 because it was like an $80 pot. And I got called by a guy with maybe $100 behind. So he called the 60 but didn't jam.
Okay.
So I basically just kind of gave up. I mean, he's never folding for the other $40, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so he called with pocket eights, and I bricked the, turn in the river. But it was funny because, like, once he made the call in my head, he was already all in. Like,
right.
He's never folding. So I actually said on the turn, I have ace high. I was like, well, if there's any hope of bluffing, it's gone now. But he didn't even hear me. And, I mean, I lost. But I thought that was kind of funny. Just because mentally I already knew, like, he's never folding. And in my head, he was already all in once he called the $60. But it was still kind of funny. Everyone thought it was a little weird.
Yeah, that is. I can see where there would be a lot of confusion at that table. I mean, we've all made blunders like that, but I can definitely see some confusion of you announcing your hand midway through the hand.
But here was, I guess, I told you about this pocket tens call. I was in the button straddle, and there was a few limpers. Maybe there really wasn't even that many limpers. It was maybe like 3 or 4 limpers. So I'm on the button. I make it 20 to go.
Pocket tens?
Pocket tens. Yes.
Okay.
Everyone folds, but the guy to my right, he called heads up.
Okay.
So the flop comes queen high, but it's like queen 6. Or, sorry, queen 5, like 2 or something. But it was a flush draw.
So this is not that bad of a flop for you. Well, this is pretty good.
I bet 60, hoping to take it down.
I like this. How much was in the pot? I forget.
So I guess with the limpers, like close to 50.
Oh, so you overbet pot here?
I think I bet right around pot. It might have not been 60. It might have been just under, but it was basically pot.
Okay. I would have bet less, but I like the bet. You can bet for value here. You can bet for protection. He's not going to have a queen that often. I like the bet here.
The turn was the king of clubs. So now the board was diamond, diamond, club, club with king, queen, and 2 low unconnected cards.
Okay. Are you in position?
I am in position. I'm on the button.
He
checks. I check.
I like this. I think this is a very... I mean, it's not super likely he has a king. He could have a queen here, and I like you doing this for pot control.
All right. And then the river is a complete brick. Like deuce of hearts or something. It was something that did not make any sense for the straights to come in or any sense, and there was missed both flush draws.
Okay.
And then the guy leads out for 70.
I definitely remember you telling me this hand because we debated this one for a while. Go ahead. Well, before I discuss this, let's go ahead. What did you do here?
So he said 70 and went to count out the chips. I threw a chip in and beat him in the pot. Told him call any king or queen is good, and he had 9 high.
So this is obviously a really good call here. When you're telling me about this hand, I won't lie. For me, I thought it was a fold at the beginning. The more you told me, because you kind of started describing the guy like kind of a young Asian guy, like a poker go shirt, and I started to get behind the call once you kind of described the guy. Because to me, if this is a 60-year-old man and you make this call, you might as well just take $70 and set it on fire at the table. I think this is very player dependent, right?
Very player dependent, and also dependent on knowing that the player, whenever it's heads up like that versus the small blind or versus the button straddle, I think he's going to be calling a lot when folded too. His range is going to be pretty wide, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. His range is going to be wide. I had a problem because to me, this is how he would play a queen. He'd check to the preflop razor call. He'd check the turn, and this is how he would probably play a king. And you're just being the missed flush draw here. But once you told me like the type of player, I don't know if I make the call here, but I can start to get behind your reasoning for the call. I will say that.
Yeah, so it worked out pretty great. But like we always said, there's that fine line between it working out great and you just looking so dumb.
Oh, well, and here's the other thing: is how much did he bet? 70, you said?
Yes.
So you said you bet pot, which was about 50 or 60?
Yeah.
So I think that's something I missed when you were telling me, too. So he's only betting like 1/4 pot here, too.
Yeah.
Or I guess it would be a third pot.
Yeah, I would say a little bit more, but yeah.
So, you only need to win this like 25% of the time. So I think I missed that on your when you first told me to. So the more you talk about this hand, the more I really get behind that. I think this is a really great call. Not just being results oriented that you won this time, but just in general.
Well, like I told, because the guy got up and walked around for a little bit after that one, but like the guy to my left said that he thought that maybe I might have put him on minor tilt. I just snap called, but I told him, I said, well, it's going to be a pretty heavy bluff spot right there. So I think you have to be calling for those odds and that run out.
So if he bets 150, do you think about it a little bit longer?
Definitely think about it a little bit longer, but
the spot doesn't change.
Yeah,
so,
it does. I still call.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious because at those odds, now that I'm thinking about it, you pretty much almost forced into it. But yeah, that was definitely a good call. And the more at first I was hesitant about it, but the more you talked about it, the more you kind of really talked me into all the reasonings of that being a good call.
But so that was interesting, I thought. And then I played 2 PLO hands, and this was kind of a topic I wanted to talk to you about. Say, we'll make it brief because I'm not going to break down the whole hand completely. But moral of the story is I turned the nuts, stone cold nuts, right? In a 3-way pot on a draw heavy board. And I didn't pot it just because I thought it would make my hand look so face up. In these pot limit Omaha games, you're just always potting it whenever it's a draw heavy board.
I think in Texas, just because in Texas people are so bad, they're going to call regardless, and you want to give them the worst possible odds on it. I don't know. I haven't, I've been studying PLO, but I haven't, I'm still fairly in the newer stages of someone who studies it. In this spot, because I think you said there was a flush draw, right?
Flush draw, I had the nut straight, but yeah, so.
If there's a flush draw, then I definitely think you have to pot it. Because here's the problem is you have any people with 2 pair have equity against you. Anybody who has a set has really good equity against you. And anybody who has a flush draw has really good equity. So I think, one, you need to bet to, make them charge them, and also to reduce their implied odds, too. Because there's just less in that stack if they do hit.
Yeah, well, I'll spoil it for you. Their equity, they capitalized on it. Oh yeah, the board paired on the river, and he had a boat. But and then so those I had 2 PLO hands that played exactly like that. So that was kind of the other one. I had the nuts. The front door flush came in. He shipped it for a ton of money, and I was like, "Wow, bye." But
I mean, that's a good fold.
both hands had pocket aces, single suited. One was ace ace king queen. The other was ace ace king 10. But
Oh God, monster hands!
yeah, but it's a good way to lose a lot of money.
You are not kidding yourself.
And here's, I guess, maybe the last interesting hand of this session, which I know you hate. I still think it's somewhat justified, but
Oh, I know exactly which one you're going with. Yeah, okay.
so I'm on the button straddle. I get 10-3 of spades. There's a few limpers. It comes to me, and I'm like, well, instead of just limping and seeing this, with everybody involved, I'm gonna raise this hand. So I raised to like 25. I think I got like 2 or 3 callers. The flop comes 10-10, like 7 with a flush draw.
I mean, amazing flop for this. I'll give my thoughts for pre-flop after you go through the hand. But, I mean, I will say, if you're going to flop trips, I'm okay with it if it's guaranteed. Okay, so you flop trips. What do you do?
It checks me. I just keep betting. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that can call. I size up, too. I bet, like, maybe 2/3 pot. I think I bet, like, 60 or 65. Yeah, so maybe 55, somewhere in there. I bet big.
Okay.
Got 1 caller. The turn was an offsuit ace. I bet about the exact same amount because he was kind of short stacked. He then ships it all in. I call. He has ace king. Hold. So yeah, I thought that worked out great.
It did work out great. That's where our opinions are going to quit mimicking each other's. I hate this play. I mean, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, I understand you. I guess it's kind of a squeeze because everybody limps, but 10-3, I don't care if it's suited, offsuit. It is just way too wide to do this play. I don't know. I don't care for this because I think you're not going to get this through very often. I mean, when you get a preflop raiser who bets 20 and you get call, and you have like ace queen, ace jack, and I mean, you can take that dead money down a lot once you really hammer it home. But I just think you're getting called so much. And when they call, they're actually ahead. Their calling range is actually ahead of 10-3. So, I don't know. Do you not love this pre-flop play? I'm glad it worked out.
All right, so I'll explain what the thought process at least.
Oh, God.
So it might be flawed, but here's at least what I was thinking when I did it. One, I had already gotten a bunch of squeeze plays like that through over the limpers. I've already got it folded through about 2 or 3 times. I've only played for an hour and 50 minutes total. So to get that many folds is pretty good, I would say. Pretty passive table.
Okay.
So in a passive table, you should be punishing the limpers, right?
With
wait,
good hands,
no,
not random hands.
No, the question is, in a passive table, and people are limp happy, if they're limp folding, you should be punishing, correct?
With good hands, yes.
No. But you need to be.
Yes, you should be punishing them.
So the counter to that strategy is not to let them see a lot of flops, right? So, in position, you can do this, right?
I mean, I
sure.
You keep asking right, like I'm magically gonna agree. I mean, unless a Lucky Charms elf jumps out of the wall and says, "Yeah," I mean, no, I get your point. And I understand, when you said earlier, like if it's 8-10 suited or something like that, I can get behind. I just because here's the thing, I just feel like you're not gonna get this through very often.
right? But luckily I got the flop, the turn in the river to get it through, you know? But so yeah, so I mean, when you do that, you're going to obviously c-bet big and then blast turn and so on, right? But I mean, it worked, 5 times before that.
Yeah, but I feel like it's even more likely you get called the more you do it. And like I say, I'm not saying you don't do it. I wouldn't love it with 5-7 suited. I would still think this is too wide, but I could start to get behind it. This is just 10-3. This is like you're like, well, I don't want to just limp here. I mean, this is just a fold. You shouldn't be limping here. This is a garbage hand.
I'm in the straddle. I'm definitely not folding.
Oh, you're in the straddle here?
Yeah, button straddle. See, I knew you'd be on my side. But
So you're on the button and you straddled.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just checked this, and I mean, granted, like I say, I'm glad it worked out well. But when you have to flop trips for it to work out well, I don't know. I just feel like this is way too wide. I feel like in the long run, this plays burning money.
Oh, I can't argue that. That play. But what I still think, squeezing the limpers, your strategy from the button straddle, because you still need to take some down when you're button straddling, right? Or else it's just...
Well, I mean, this is hard because, we're justifying a negative EV play with another negative EV play, right? Because a button straddle, unless everybody's straddling, which it's not a negative EV because it's just
break even.
Yeah,
right?
It's break even. But if you are straddle, I mean, it's definitely a negative EV play. So I really think it's negative EV when you're now using it to justify even more negative EV plays, right?
I mean, I can't argue. I mean, everything you said was true. So I won.
Tyler's like, the results say I'm richer.
Yeah. So that was my session. Those are the key hands, though. Yeah. I mean, that was basically it. I played a very short session. That was basically it. Lost in PLO. Got lucky with my 10-3 hand.
I guess we're back to my Vegas trip, right?
Yeah, we have. I think this might even be a three-part Vegas trip, right? Because I mean, you just played so much poker.
It's definitely gonna be a 3-part. I mean, there's no way I can get.
Well, I didn't know if it was 3 or 4.
It'll probably be 3. I'll probably end it. Like I've got this as a pretty good middle, and then next week should probably be the end of the Vegas trip.
Okay, sounds good. So I guess last week you told us you were going to play some PLO and you're going to have a winning session. So
yeah. Well, we're going to start. I end up going back to Caesar's Palace to play there. The friend I was with wanted to play there, so I mean, I like Caesar's Palace. I said it wasn't one of the best poker rooms in Vegas, but I still like it. I still really enjoy it.
What do you think about them capping the buy-in? Does that take a minute for you to get adjusted to?
Oh, well, I mean, it's everywhere in Vegas, and it's very different than Match the Stack. Basically, in Texas, your suited connectors and stuff like that go up in value when you're deeper stacked, and things like Queen Jack, King Jack offsuit go down in value. Well, in Vegas, when you're stacked, at least when you're first buying in, I mean, Queen Jack, King Jack are a lot more valuable, and your suited and I mean, like 5-7 suited is just a fold.
It's unplayable. Yeah, that's stacked up.
It's you just can't. I mean, you're just not getting the implied odds ever to play it. I mean, you could play it as a button or cutoff raise, but other than that, it's never going to be a call. So I go to Caesar's Palace, and let me go ahead and recap the Vegas trip up until now. I lost 437 the first night I was there. I was down 500 in the housewarming event. I then went to MGM Grand and lost 262. And I mean, for the most part, I try to separate bad play from bad runs. The tournament is, you're going to lose most of the time.
I mean, you count the tournament, but I guess for you, does it all come out of the same bankroll?
It's debatable right now.
Okay. Well, because for me, I just considered the tournament just chalked up to just a fun, like, do it more for fun than anything.
That's fair. So, I mean, at this point, I've just been kind of running pretty bad. There's not been any really that bad of plays. It's just more or less been coolers. So I go into Caesars. I'm like, okay, well, let's go ahead and get something good started. 3 hands in, I end up with Queen Jack with the Queen of Spades. The flop is King Jack 3. There's a bet. Turn opened with flush draw. And there's a bet and a call.
Okay, so you have Queen Jack of Spades, bet and a call. Okay, so it's probably to like 15 there, right?
Yeah, it's a. So yeah, that's probably about right. The turn gives me the flush draw. I now have middle pair with a flush draw. The river, and that goes. I think that goes. A bet and. I think I might have gone check. The river is giving me the second nut flush. It's a spade. So it is now come backdoor flush draw to give me the second nuts. He checks. I have, at this point, there must have been a bet on the turn, because I do remember I had like a little over a pot size bet here. Once he checks, I go ahead and jam it, thinking maybe I can get, a jack of spades to call, like jack 10, 9 spades maybe to call. He snap calls, and he's got the nuts with the ace of spades.
That's rough.
So this is very rough, and I've gone over. I realize my reading of this hand wasn't the best.
Yeah, I was saying, it was confusing.
Yeah, it was but I will say, coming into it, at the moment I thought it was a guaranteed bet for value on that river with 4 spades out there and me having the second nuts and him checking to me. Later, I'm like, well, I don't know am I getting that much value from anything? And I'm not certain that shouldn't just be a check.
So hard not to be results oriented here, right? But do you ever think maybe instead of it being a jam or a check, maybe betting like half pot? I mean, obviously this is the most results oriented, but you haven't even addressed it yet, so I was just maybe thinking, is there and maybe any sort of middle ground for a bet in between, or do you think it's just an obvious all in or fold?
I guess you might be more likely to get called by like a third nut flush or second or fourth nut flush to get there. I mean, obviously if he jams, I'm just kind of stuck there, because now I'm getting like 1 to 9 with second nuts. I mean, and granted, I might be losing this 10 out of 10, but I mean, I don't know what you're gonna. That was really gonna put me in a horrid spot. But that's kind of result. But yeah, maybe if I bet 50, I can get more calls from lesser flushes.
That was kind of my thought. You might get like the pocket 10s with the random 10 in there to call, something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, when I go backdoor to the second nuts, and he checked, and it was a good check by him. I mean, I thought like ace of spades would be betting there more often, because there's a lot of things, pretty much everything outside of the queen of spades, I should probably be checking there. Definitely. So I just happened to have the one hand that it didn't make sense for him to check to. But it was pretty tough, because that was third hand in. I get stacked. And I mean, weirdly enough, I thought I kind of rivered him when actually I was ahead. He had like ace 10 for a straight draw and a flush draw, and I actually had it up until that spade. So that was pretty tough. Now,
and you rebuy, right? I know.
I rebought for the.
I feel like for you particularly, especially in Vegas, maybe you should have just taken a walk, like packed up and just walked to a different room, or.
I mean, this hand's gonna Prove you right.
Okay. So I don't
Okay.
know the next hand. I just know that you said you never normally play that well after getting stacked. So maybe when you're in Vegas, it might have been better to maybe walk around, change rooms, just since there's so many poker rooms. But I guess you go ahead.
Getting stacked doesn't bother me, but when I'm starting to run like multiple times of getting stacked, especially on something like this where it's like 3 hands in and I've already been running bad, that will start to wear on me. This is one of the more interesting hands I've played in a while, probably. I have King Jack. The flop is Jack 3-6. I bet I raised 15 with King Jack. Flop is Jack 3-6. I bet he check raises.
Is it heads up?
It is heads up.
Okay, and like we always say, these flop check raises are always a fold unless you have something super nutted. So
Yeah, I've got King Jack, which is pretty strong top pair, and I have a backdoor flush draw. I'm like, and I think his check raise is like a min raise. So I'm getting ridiculous odds.
I always struggle with folding to a min raise. I almost feel like I don't know if I have done it in the last 2 years.
Yeah, because I mean, I think I bet 20 and he bet 40. He raised to 40. So I'm like, well, this is just too weak to fold here. But I'm super suspicious. Because, I mean, here's the other thing, is the check raise when it's a min raise is never a bluff.
Well, was he a new player?
No, it did not seem like he was a new player. It seemed like he was kind of a nitty player, though.
This is getting worse and worse.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought here. I turn a king,
Oh, God.
giving me
okay.
2 pair. He bets 50. I'm like, well, now I have top 2. And I'm like, well, if he has a set, this is going to really be bad for me.
I mean, is this just kind of a setup situation? I mean, are you I'm thinking about raising here, I think, right?
I never thought about raising. It's because I think when I raise, I'm just getting called by most everything that has me beat. But he bets 50. I'm just too strong now to fold.
You ever think he might have, like, slow played aces or, like, ace jack?
Ace Jack runs through my mind. I call. The river's a blank, and he bets 100.
I mean, it's just an easy snap call, right? I mean, there's nothing.
Should be. So
no.
I'm going through the hands of how he would play this, and so a check raise on the flop, continues betting the turn, and then bets the river. I'm like, well, he would play this way with a set. He would play this, and that's pretty much it. I mean, would Ace Jack barrel twice after an overcard comes? I mean, it seems like a very thin value here. So I kind of tank forever and a day. And I'm like, I can beat Ace Jack, but I don't know that ever plays this way. And I'm losing to all the sets. I guess a flop 2 pair. I mean, but what 2 pair of flop? Jack 6 or Jack 3? I mean, yeah. So I'm starting to come up, like the more I think, the more I'm coming up with nothing that I beat. I make a fold, and this fold, I'm getting great odds to call here.
Right.
I'm getting like probably 1-4. But I'm like, I'm hemorrhaging money this entire trip, and I cannot think of a single hand I'm ever beating here. I fold, and he turns over Ace Jack.
And now it's probably time to hit the road.
This was a tough one. Because, I mean, this was a pretty big pot that I should have won. And what is your analysis? I obviously should be calling this with the odds I'm getting. But do you agree with my analysis that it's very unlikely I'm ever winning here?
I was worried about the min click whenever you said he was nitty. I was thinking, I don't know. I don't know if how much did you have behind?
I mean, I wasn't stacked here.
Right? Did you maybe have like 200 behind?
I probably had less than 200 behind. I probably had like 140 behind.
I mean, I'm thinking when I make that turn, I'm just shipping it all in there. That's what I was thinking. But and if you just run into a set, it's just, I mean,
that's how it really should play. I mean, if you're gonna, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it should be a setup situation where if you're gonna hit that king, then if it's a set, then I mean, it was just a bad turn for you, right?
well, then you hope you river a jack. But
Yeah.
but I mean, I understand your thought process, but I guess like Bart always says about making hero folds in 1-3 is just. I mean, it's weird because Bart, wow, I'm struggling with that. Bart and Jonathan Little both say like that they just seem almost like calling stations, but always call and just almost seems like that was like a time. I mean, obviously results oriented, like a time to call, but
Yeah.
where I think you kind of just have to shrug call given the odds, given the 1-3 table.
I mean, I think this can be taken too far, and I think I have taken this too far. But in that situation, I believe that was the right move to call there. It's just, I mean, it's just too strong to fold for those odds.
I feel like you just got in your own head in that one.
Oh, I mean, it's 100% from running bad and just, getting, 100% go in my own head.
Here's the real question. If you don't get flush over flush in the first 3 hands, I feel like you snap call that.
Probably so, yeah. It's I mean, you got to think at this point when I've been running this bad, I'm just running into hand after hand where I should have been folding. And I think it does get in your head after a while. So that was one of the worst hands I've played in a long time, actually.
Here's my question, though. It might seem irrelevant, but did you have another buy-in in your pocket, or was that all the money you brought with you?
I don't remember. I think I was probably going to cap it to 2 buy-ins, though.
See, because in situations like that, normally I'll lean toward the passive side if I don't have any more money to rebuy. And obviously, if you just got stacked the first 3 hands, you haven't been there that long, right? And I hate whenever something like that influences your action, even though you know the correct action is to call, but you're influenced because, if you get stacked there, then what are you going to do? But I thought maybe that might, I mean, it shouldn't have a effect, but I know in the past it's had an effect for me to make the wrong calls and folds. Did any of that, or was just not even relevant?
Well, I think it is relevant, but in a different way for me. I don't think, even if I had the buy-in, that I would have played again. And I mean, because here's the thing is I brought so much money to Vegas, and don't get me wrong, I have a bankroll that will cover it, and I can get money out if I need it and stuff like that. But I brought more than enough that would, should last me through a trip of this stakes poker. I should never have to ATM with what I brought from 1-3. Well, now I'm getting shorter and shorter on, and this is like this is like Monday or Tuesday. No, this is Monday on the trip or Tuesday at the very latest. So, I mean, I know I'm going to be here for 6 more days. I'm already running this bad. That definitely was in my head. So it's kind of a different version of the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah, because I know that sometimes that's played a factor for me. So I was just wondering.
So it's if that's the worst hand I played in a long time, this is going to be the second worst.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. I like to keep them close to each other so they're easy to keep track of.
Yeah, this is not great.
Is this all at Caesars?
This is all at Caesars.
I mean, the game's got to be good.
Yeah, no kidding. Just make sure Clint's to your on
the table.
I have King 5 of Hearts.
Say, humor me. Tell me you're in the big blind.
I don't know. I'm probably in the big blind. I don't know how this goes, but somehow I'm in there with King 5 of Hearts, and I flop a flush draw. God dang. This is, I mean, my notes are just lackluster here. But I flop a flush draw and with a king high overcard. I bet he calls. The turn is, I think it was like a queen high board. It pairs the board. So I check, and then he checks behind. I miss on the river, but now on the river it double pairs the board. So I have I think queens and fours with king high. He bets 35. I convince myself that sometimes he has a missed flush draw that's less than mine, and I call with king high for $35, and he has pocket jacks.
Yeah.
I mean, this is...
I thought you were going to say you're going to fold on us, so that wasn't bad. But, okay. Yeah, I mean, at least it's only $35, right?
I mean, it was only $35, but I mean, here's the thing. Is when you're doing this with $35, I mean, this was just a horrible call. Well, one, it's a horrible call, and then if I barrel the turn, because I have a king high
Flush draw.
with a king high flush draw, a king is an overcard. I thought about barreling this turn, and this is not going to be the last of this, where I should have barreled and I didn't. And if I barrel that turn, he goes away. He puts me on a queen. And then, so I messed up on that. I don't know if that's a mess up or... I mean, it's probably a justifiable one. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I think the spot is close either way, right? I don't think it's the worst to check it or bet it. Knowing his hand, obviously, we all like the bet since we know the result. But I think in the spot, I'm pretty close either way on if I like the check or the bet. I just didn't really know if I liked the call on the river.
The call on the river is a disaster. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I think, I think I was getting pretty good odds, and I did have some missed flushes beat, so that I justified it there. I don't know. I mean, this one is a disaster.
Yeah.
I end up coming back a little bit, getting pocket kings. Oh, God. I didn't even... two of the worst hands I played, I didn't even put in here. I had one... What did I have? Pocket kings and not 3-bet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I don't remember. So I have pocket kings.
I was about to say, the other hand you folded aces pre-flop.
Pretty much. I have pocket kings. I raise. I get 3-bet. And then I'm like, well, I haven't 4-bet yet. I'm just too... And then when I call this 3-bet, I'm short enough. We can almost always get stacks in. So I just make the call. I don't hate this move at these stack sizes, really. It comes a jack high flop. I think he leads into me, and I re-raise.
You re-raise all in, right?
He bet super small. I did not re-raise all in. I kind of figured like I would rope this in and get it all in on the turn. I re-raise. I think he actually jams here, and I just call. I'm like, I have queens beat, I have ace-jack beat, and he flopped a set of jacks.
Dang.
So, I mean, I definitely can't say that this entire session was just, getting kings busted by jacks. I played like shit the entire session. So, it's I don't know. I mean, this was one of the worst. I mean, I lost 600. That's not the end of the world, but it was definitely one of the poorer played sessions. Everything up until this was more or less just kind of coolers and run bad. This is where it just starts to go off the rails of me just playing like garbage.
Again, did you think about getting up yet or not yet?
Well, I mean, I caught up then.
Okay.
I mean, there's this thing, they're real particular about you having money at the table. They're real stingy about that over at Caesar's Palace.
Oh, okay, no spectators at the table. All right.
Yeah. So it's I think I do end up playing that night. I go to Aria. I'm like, well, Caesars I've been running, partly running bad. I mean, really, in all honesty, it was combined with bad play and bad run. Because the flush over flush was a pretty bad card for me.
I mean, I thought it was a 2 card. I thought you both turned a flush on that one. But yeah, I mean, not just a second nut. Just just kind of that is what it is kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and especially considering there's a ton of cards where I actually would have probably been checked down and have been good. And then the King 5 of Hearts was badly played, but I was 50-50 on the flop. And I mean, sometimes you do hit a flush or a king. It was not the best play, but there was some run bad. I go to Aria, and I see 1-2 PLO. I'm like, well, I have been studying a little bit of PLO. I'm like, 1-2 is not that bad. I didn't realize it, and I mean, don't get me wrong, yes, my bankroll can handle this, but I would not have jumped into 1-2, bring in a 5 PLO every hand. I mean...
So explain to us what that is, because we don't have that in Texas,
So it's your small blind's 1, your big blind is 2, and that's all you're required. But the bring in is when you open into the pot, the minimum is 5. So you're never going to see a pot that's less than $5 each player. So it's $5 to play. You're just not required to in the small and big blind.
How much did you buy in for this game? Because if I were you, I probably would have sat down with 200, but that did not seem like nearly enough for this type of game.
Well, I looked at stack sizes and I bought in for 400.
And I'm sure you were still short, right?
I was short, but it wasn't like holy crap, how's that guy even playing in this game short? I mean, I think the max is 500, so I'm not that short.
Okay.
I mean, there's only one hand that really matters in this. I play for probably about 2.5 hours, and it goes, I end up with pocket aces, not much else with them.
Oh.
It ends up being 50, 50, 50, 50, 50. And I'm sitting there with pocket aces. And I've got about 330. I'm like, well, if I call 50 here and I don't hit a set, I'm just burning money. But with pocket aces being a favorite against any hand, I was like, if I jam here, it gets heads up. There's a ton of dead money in the spot. Well, probably should just be calling here and going with trying to set mine. I jam it in here, and literally not one person folds.
I mean, my thought was, I liked, when you and I talked about this hand, I remember this hand a while ago, I liked the jam in the moment, but once everybody calls, your other 2 aces are dead, and you're only really playing your other 2 cards.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, once everybody calls, I know. I mean, I'm very close just to mucking my hand at this point. So, obviously, I don't hold up. I mean, there's nothing even close. I think I flopped maybe a gutter that wouldn't have even been to the nuts. So, yeah, it was a massive overplay, I think, on my part. I mean, especially if I have aces with at least one suited and maybe it's a little connected. Like, I think I had ace, 9, 6, no flush for draws. If it's like ace, 9, 7 with at least a suited ace, maybe. I don't know. I honestly haven't studied PLO enough to know. All I know is that sucked.
Yeah, that sounds rough. I mean, like, being results oriented, I didn't mind the jam in the moment. Once everyone calls, I mean, you went from me not minding it to me, like you said, we just pack up, start unplugging the phone charger, and get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was. So, I mean, now this day has turned into more and more of a disaster. This trip at this point is gone, considering it's only like Tuesday. I mean, I'm there till next Sunday. So, I mean, it's really starting to go off the rails.
I thought we were promised a winning session. What happened? What's going on? You haven't won yet.
Yeah, we haven't won. So, I end up at MGM Grand. So we go, this is the next day. I go and recoup. I'm going to gloss over, because this is not that interesting of a session. I go and get lunch the next day. I go and play at that esports arena that actually is super cool if you like video games and stuff like that.
That's at the Luxor, yeah.
That is at the Luxor. So I go and it's a good place for me to kind of go and chill out and not get my mind off poker for a minute.
Because Clint was playing at America's Card Room in there.
Yeah. I end up at MGM, end up playing for like 2 hours or something, and my phone's dead. Not a great table, and I think I was up like 150, and I whittled down to like 77. And I'm like, you know what? I need to go charge my phone, and I need, even if it's $77, I just need to see a win in my tracker. And I've used this on bad runs before, and it really helps kind of mentally regain something. Because you're just like, well, I got one session in where I made money, I won, and, kind of helps you recoup. I like this a lot. Like I say, no real interesting hands, just won a couple ones that, actually a few held up that should. That night, end up at the Orleans. So there was a big tournament that my friends wanted to do. So I went up there, and I just played cash. I'm like, I'm not doing any tournaments. The variance is already killing me. I don't need to add to more variance. This is the just most grindy session ever. I was down. I played over 7 hours, and I was down for probably 6 hours and 30 minutes of it. I mean, it was just... could not get anything going at any point in time. Flopped one combo draw with a flush draw and a straight draw to someone's set. And I think top pair, top kicker. That bricked. It was just getting murdered. There were some interesting hands. There's a hand where I raised ace-queen pre-15. There's a king-high flop with 2 spades. I bet 1 call. There's a king on the turn. So I'm like, well, I can really rep a king here. I barrel, he calls. The river is a nothing, and I just give up. He checks, and I'm good with ace high. You know, talk about just...
Finally, some run good.
Yeah, exactly. I guess if that's what it's going to take. I don't know. I was like, what in God's name just happened here?
You think he misread your hand?
I think he must have had a flush draw, right? Yeah. 2 spades. It just... It didn't want to bluff. I mean, talk about he should have bluffed. If he bluffs $10 in that pot, I'm gone. Although we know I call with king high, so who knows?
I was about to say, but if he bets 35, you call.
Yeah, that's obvious bluff. I have 8-8. I make it 15. There's 6 ways to the flop. The flop is 9 high with 2 hearts. The pre-flop raiser bets 30, which is kind of a small bet into the spot. With second pair, I make the call. It checks down, and he bricks a flush. Once he checks and kind of gives up there, I should probably be betting that turn. I put that
That's
in
what
there.
I was thinking.
Yeah, that was kind of a mistake, but at least I ended up not costing me too much. I get pocket queens, and someone flops a set of 8s on me.
That's brutal.
Over pairs to sets, man. They're just murder. And I remember just the feeling of that, because I think I lost about 200 on that hand, and I was finally making a climb. I was like finally up, finally making a deal, and then you get hit by that set, and you're just like, God damn it. Could something please go my way? At that point, I'm starting to lose it at this point. I 3-bet king-queen off to 30. Get 1 call. I mean, I'm off the rails. I'm 3-betting king-queen off. Flop king 9-6, down bet to 20. I get re-raised to 45. This is one of those that... There's a difference when we only say when you get check-raised or re-raised on the flop, it's just a set. I've noticed on these down bets, people just attack the shit out of them. and read them as weakness.
Yeah, and I've noticed that as well.
Which is weird because you probably use it more when I'm in a position of strength, really. But I was done here. I mean, you are not getting me off King Queen at this point. You got a set, you just got me. I jam, and he folds and shows King Jack.
Oh,
well. So this should be a call instead of a jam.
I mean, again, knowing the results, sure, but
yeah,
it's hard. It's hard to break down the hand once I know the results, but
that's very true. That's a good point. I end up with 8-9 of clubs. I flop 3-7 Jack with 1 club and 2 hearts. He bets small. I call with my gutter and backdoor flush draw. The turn is a 6 of hearts. He bets small. I call again. River a 9. He checks. I check behind. And somehow I'm good.
Sounds like a miracle. Sounds like miracles are happening for you now.
I mean, there were a lot of weird hands like that. Well, I think he bet ridiculously small in these pots. Is how I'm still here. Because I remember his bets were like 1/6 pot. So I end up actually getting up. Let me see. Let's check this. I end up getting up $100. The table gets close to breaking, and I have now been there over 7 hours. I've been down to like $80 once. I mean, I've never been so happy to win $100 in my life because I've been getting killed, and 7 hours in, it's a session that I could have easily been busted at some point, and the $100 was great. So I end up cashing out my 100 and just calling it good, and finally having a winning day.
I'm gonna say the trip is saved.
Yeah, I mean, so that was kind of that day that I ended on. It's a tiny drip in the bucket of what I've gotten killed for in Vegas, but it's one of those that you kind of needed to mentally reset a little bit.
Yeah, I know. That's like I've had those on the downswings. Whenever you have what a lot of people would consider a big win, but I'm like, just think, I have to do this 20 more times to get my money back.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was on this. So it was it was pretty rough. And I mean, I've been getting a lot of bad tables, both annoying and not that great to play at. So it's been a really rough trip up to this point. So I was just glad to book any win. Like I say, it's not been the trip that I'd dreamed of coming into it.
Yeah, so that's a tough time to be there that long, but
that was my trip into PLO land. Did not go great. And finally realized that there is sometimes I will win in Vegas.
I guess that concludes things, unless you got anything else to talk about.
I'm going to go play tonight and hopefully get off these bad swings, and hopefully I think you're going to play tonight too, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping you're still on that bad swing to double me up.
Well, I've been burning money. It might as well go to you, man.
All right, on that note, this concludes the Texas Poker Podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
That was the Texas Poker Podcast. Go ahead and rack up, add time, and we'll see you next week.